Thank you. I appreciate the warm introduction, and it's great to see a lot of friendly faces, I would anticipate, in the Kiwanis Club. Here to talk about your Deschutes County Road Department. Usually when a community group like this has me out to speak, it's because you've reached the bottom of a very long list of interesting community topics to hear about. And so, but that's what we're here for, to bring up the rear. We're going to talk about the county road department. So get right into it. And again, Chris Doty, I'm the road department director. I've lived in Redmond for 30 years. I had to think about that today, and I can't believe it. And went to work for Joanne at the city of Redmond in 2001. My hair was a different color then.
So mine.
Yours was the same, but I'm catching up. We're pretty close. And I was with the city of Redmond for 11 years, and I've been with Deschutes County now for 13 years, which is another bit of math that I struggle with comprehending. So who are we? Deschutes County Road Department. We maintain and operate 928 miles of county road in Deschutes County. County road is a road that's been dedicated for public use, either through a dedication document or platting over time. And then it has also been accepted by the Board of County Commissioners for maintenance. Those are the two things that have to happen to be considered a county road. And 928 miles, that's enough to get from one side of the state to the other and back again. So a significant amount of mileage of county roads. Who we are not, we're not ODOT, we don't do state highways. We're not the cities. We don't maintain any of the roads inside the city limits. With the exception of City of La Pine, as a young city, there's still some roads in the city of La Pine that are county roads. But there's also other road maintenance jurisdictions, in our area. Forest Service, BLM, road districts. Gary Ollerenshaw was mentioned earlier. Howells Hilltop Acres, that's his road district. Know Gary from that quite a bit. A lot of private roads, in Deschutes County. Think of all the resort developments and private subdivisions. And then local access roads, which are roads that were dedicated publicly for use, but not accepted by the Board of County Commissioners, usually because they weren't built to a county standard and not accepted by the county for maintenance. So a lot of folks might surprise you how often we get calls, hey, come fix this pothole in front of my house. Where do you live? You're in the city of Bend. So a little bit of education about different maintenance jurisdictions for your transportation network. We usually cuss at them, too, if they're in the city of Bend. We make them feel terrible and send them on their way. Deschutes County road system, again, 928 miles, 702 paved, 226 unpaved or gravel or dirt. Our road mileage, what we lack in kind of the sophisticated road network, we make up for, just in the quantity. If you added up all the road miles in all the cities in Deschutes County, plus all the state highways in Deschutes County, we still have more miles, put together than those communities. And then we have different classifications. We have arterials. Arterials are kind of higher volume, higher speed roadways, like your old Bend Redmond Highway, Powell Butte Highway, Burgess Road down in South County. Those are arterials. Collectors are kind of intermediate facilities that take traffic from neighborhoods and distribute those out to arterials. Local roads, generally where folks live, to provide direct access to land in the rural areas, connecting neighborhoods to the collectors. Low volume, low speed generally, and that's the majority of our system. And then we maintain 102 miles of forest highway, which are roads that provide access into the Deschutes National Forest that we maintain through an agreement. So it's quite a bit of mileage, up Cascade Lakes Highway and Paulina Lake Road, things like that. In addition to the roads, we have 58 bridges to maintain, over 15,000 signs, 190 pieces of rolling stock or equipment just in the road department. We've got 250 vehicles that are light fleet, the remainder of the fleet in the county, like the health department and community development. We maintain that in the road department in our shop. 1,500 miles of striping, and then about 3,200 acres of property just adjacent to the pavement in the right-of-way that we deal with vegetation management, things like that as well. As far as our department, kind of how the composition of it, so to speak, we're broken into 4 different divisions. We have operations and maintenance. These are your snowplow operators and folks you see out operating equipment. It's about half of our department are folks in that division. We have fleet and equipment. So our shop that maintains all the equipment, fleet. Engineering, and we'll get into what these departments or divisions do here in a second. Engineering, and then also administration. We have 61 full-time employees in the department, and then on an annual basis during the summer season, we bring on 10 to 15 contract seasonal employees, basically college kids or recently retired folks that still have some mileage left. That want to flag for us and kind of help us out, deliver our summer work program. So I heard a lot of Redmond High recent graduates over the years. Got a connection there. In operations and maintenance, we focus a lot on our pavement maintenance. So we're doing a lot of chip seal, a lot of crack seal on the county roads, patching. Right now we're in pothole repair season. The weather's finally subsided. Of course, that freeze thaw creates potholes, so we're out there patching everything from Lapine to Terrebonne right now. Everything's kind of, the ugliness is happening, but we're out there dealing with that right now. Shoulder maintenance, roadside vegetation management, again, striping, bridge maintenance, response to emergency hazards and things like that happen on the road where there's a crash. We need to come clean it up or flag until it's everything's taken care of. A lot of sweeping and brooming. A lot of that's happening right now as well, just with now all the sanding material's out and it's on the side of the road. We got to go broom it off or sweep it up. Snow and ice control. Obviously, we're just coming out of the winter season, and we've been pretty busy this winter with dealing with snow and ice. It's been almost a typical type winter, or we're not getting a foot of snow everywhere. We're getting it up in the mountains, up in the higher elevation areas, South County and higher elevation, and we haven't had to deal with it a lot here on the north part of the county. So that's been helpful. Within fleet and equipment, in that division, again, we maintain the 190 pieces of fleet we have in the road department. We have a fueling system, so a little gas station basically we fuel out of on site. Have a car wash as well. We do specialty fabrication. Again, maintain the 250 pieces of light fleet within the county. And then just managing the fleet in general. So there's 400-600 pieces of equipment and fleet. There's a lot of equipment coming in, a lot of equipment being surplus, and just kind of managing the life cycle and determining when to replace pieces of equipment. Do mobile maintenance services, and then all the bidding and specification writing for that specialty piece of equipment that we may be purchasing. Within the engineering division of the road department, we do our capital improvement plan project delivery. So we'll get into some of those capital projects here in a little bit, but this team is the ones, basically, if we're contracting something, we're hiring contractors to do work, which we do a lot of. This is the team that gets that done. So designing projects, major maintenance projects, overlay projects that are bid out. We'll do land use review and permitting within the department. The traffic sign program, so those 15,000 signs, that's administered through the engineering office. Traffic data collection, you'll see those tube counters out on the road in the county road system. We're constantly collecting data, so we have an understanding of where people are driving, the amount of use that we're getting in the system. Bridge inspection, and then the surveyor's office is also located within the engineering division. So the surveyor's office basically deals with all the surveys that are filed publicly and privately throughout the county. So not just in the unincorporated areas, but all the cities as well, all those subdivisions and partitions. Those plats are routed through the surveyor's office for approval. And so all that takes place within that division. All right, we won't get into the administrative division. That's where I reside, and that's boring stuff. We make the coffee. I always like to walk people through budgeting and just how we decide to spend your money, so to speak, and the process that goes through our minds in doing that. And so we use this general philosophy in terms of prioritization of expenditure. Our number one priority is always going to be to maintain the system. So maintain what we have, maintain that asset that's been invested in by the public for decades and decades. We want to keep that up and keep that quality there. And the biggest part of that is our pavement management program. The highest value asset that generally a government agency has isn't in the buildings or the utility systems or parks or things like that. It's the value of that pavement that you drive on. That 702 miles of pavement we have is valued, replacement value of probably close to $700 million. And so that's where a lot of our focus is going to be with your resources, is making sure that is sustained at a quality and maintained properly. But also signing, striping, vegetation management, everything that goes with maintaining what we have. Our second area that we invest in, once we've kind of got maintenance to a level that we feel is sustainable, will be operating the system. So reacting to things that happen on the system to make sure it's a safe roadway and transportation network for folks to drive on. So a lot of that has to do with snow and ice. Making sure we have an appropriate snow and ice response on our system. And so those are the first two things kind of close together when we get resources that we focus on. Finally, once we've accomplished what we need to maintain and operate to an acceptable level, with what's left over, we'll then invest that in improving the system. It's a trickle-down budgeting philosophy. I invented that term, trickle-down. I don't know. People laugh when I say that. I don't know why. But once we've done that, that's where we're going to build capital projects from, do those major maintenance components, safety improvements as a part of that, modernization. So really, it's our focus is maintain what we have and then improve the system with what's left over. And feel free to stop me with questions or comments or anything along the way. I should have started with that. So let's talk about revenue and expenditures, what we have coming in and out of the road department in the way of dollars. The pie chart on the left shows revenue. Mr. Duff's like, fully dialed in here. You notice, anytime I see a cash box in this town, usually there's a Duff right there guarding it and controlling what goes in and out of that. As far as revenue goes, we are primarily funded with an allocation from what's called the State Highway Fund. And I'll talk about what that is in a second. So that's 66% of our budget, and really the beginning working capital is money left over from the prior budget cycle, which is primarily comprised of also State Highway Fund dollars. So, we're almost 80% funded with State Highway Fund. We do get a little sliver of pie here from the federal government through two federal programs that, quite frankly, I'm a little nervous about. You can imagine why. Federally right now, any dollars out, that they're throwing the challenge flag. And so, Mr. Musk, if you're listening, ski rural schools and payment in lieu of taxes, very helpful to the road department. Those are the two federal programs that fund us. So annually, that's about $31 million in revenue. On the expenditure side, so where do we invest that? Really in three primary categories. We have personnel services, so the folks, the team, the people and 61 employees take up about a third. Materials and services, these are things that we self-perform, like our chip seal program, all that patching, crack seal, vegetation management materials, what have you. That's about a third. And then finally, that trickle-down piece, with what's left over, that's also about a third in capital projects right now. So as things tighten up, this capital piece, will get smaller. As the legislature awards transportation funding packages, increases the gas tax and registration fees a little bit, that's where we're able to really make ground and make more investments in those capital projects. So the State Highway Fund, again, which is 80% of our revenue, is comprised of three different things. The first is the fuel tax, so what you pay at the pump in the way of a gas tax. Currently, the state gas tax is 40 cents per gallon, and collectively, the fuel tax represents 46% of what goes into the State Highway Fund. Weight mile tax, That is what the truckers pay. That is how freight contributes to the State Highway Fund. That's about a third. Freight obviously has, needs that demand investment, and also heavy loads as well that kind of deteriorate parts of the system. So they do pay a pretty significant share. And then finally, on the third one there is DMV fees. So your registration, title, license fees comprise about 22% of the State Highway Fund. State Highway Fund is actually, it's all pooled together, and then it is split out formulaically where ODOT, Oregon Department of Transportation, the state basically gets 50% of that for their system. Counties get 30%. Cities get 20%. And cities also have different funding mechanisms as well to fund parts of their transportation system. You got franchise fees, property tax. There's a lot of local funding mechanisms that cities have that counties in the state don't have. And so, that's why cities maybe only get 20%. Question?
So how are you accounting for electric vehicles?
Yeah, great question. That's the big debate right now is, are they paying their fair share? And the answer to that is they're not. And so, obviously, a full electric vehicle buys no gas. And so how they can pay their fair share is part of that registration fee. And so registration fees for electric vehicles are more than you would pay for a gas vehicle, but
crazy cheap enough.
But they're not enough.
And I drive EVs, and I purposely drive EVs, so I pay less than that.
Yeah.
Just to be totally honest.
Yeah, no, and that's documented, and that won't last too much longer, I think.
I think they're going to do it by tires eventually, and I think that's the way to do it because that is the most accurate way to gauge usage.
The long term, the funding mechanism that's getting a lot of consideration is called a road usage charge, and basically it's some sort of mechanism that tracks your mileage, and then you pay. That's what the long term thought process is. I see you're not a fan.
Who wants that?
Yeah, yeah.
Except for bureaucrats.
It's language.
Drives wants that track.
Yeah, it's language for 20 years for a reason. It really hasn't moved forward that much.
Same thing, and you don't have to track anybody.
Yeah. Well, tires, there's a piece of legislation. I think Bulletin probably reported on it yesterday. But right now to do a 4% tire tax. And
that should be increased enough to make up the difference. I'm not saying people shouldn't be paying.
Yeah, there was probably 1,000 people that showed up at the legislature and let them know they weren't a fan either. But anyways, let's talk a little bit about your fuel tax, what you pay at the pump, and kind of break that down a little bit. You actually pay 58.4 cents per gallon. 18.4 cents is the federal portion, goes to Washington, D.C. That has not been increased since 1993, since before John Duff could drink a beer legally. It was 18.4 cents then, it's 18.4 cents today. Oregon's portion is 40 cents per gallon. Deschutes counties receive 30% of that. Deschutes County, of that 30% that goes to all counties, Deschutes County receives about 6%. And that's based on just a formula, primarily gauged on the number of registered vehicles we have proportionally to the other counties. So when you buy a gallon of gas at $3.99 a gallon, 58.4 cents of that is the tax, and the rest is what it is. The legislature's talking about a transportation funding package right now that would probably increase the gas tax, registration fees. There's some other unique mechanisms that they're looking at as well. There's just a big need right now for transportation investment. The amount of inflation that's happened over the past several years has just made it real difficult to kind of keep up with the deterioration, needs for projects, things like that. So nobody wants to pay more, but it's just an unfortunate reality of again, that investment that we've made. We want to continue to see quality in that. So talk a little bit about our capital improvement plan. So that 33% of our revenue piece of pie. And this slide shows the projects we have kind of identified over the next 5 years throughout our system. We actually do our transportation planning on a 20-year basis. So that's called a transportation system plan that looks at where we have growth needs, other major maintenance needs, bridge replacement needs, things like that. But out of that 20 years, we grab 5 years based on our projections for funding. So what do we reasonably think we can do in the next 5 years? And so that's what we have right here is our 5-year CIP. And this is adopted annually by the Board of County Commissioners. And how projects get on this list is a combination of really 3 different things and a variety of studies that we use to help us. We take a look at the asset condition, and if it needs an overlay, it will rise to this project list. We take a look at the system development needs, our transportation system plan. Do we need a project here to accommodate growth that we've seen in this area, to add capacity and what have you? And so the TSP helps kind of inform that decision. And then safety. Safety is a big part of our project planning. We'll do a special study called a Transportation Safety Action Plan that looks at where we're having crashes in our system and what we can do to mitigate that. And that could be a capital project. It could be some low-cost things like signage and striping, vegetation management, other things to kind of help mitigate a safety issue. So kind of hard to read, but this is the project list we have. I will next slide kind of deals with projects we have planned in the next couple of years. What's in the hopper? So in this construction season and the next, we've got a roundabout planned at Lower Bridge Way and 43rd Street, kind of that gateway to Crooked River Ranch.
When does that get finished again?
It will probably be finished in 2026. A big problem there, unfortunately, is where we have it sited, and really anywhere you put it out there, we have BLM all around it. Well, if you're acquiring property from BLM, there's a process there. If you're acquiring property from BLM in the midst of a massive federal issue right now, it makes it even harder to kind of get in touch with the right people and make things move. So there's kind of a little bit of risk associated with that time frame. But that's the project we have planned. Roundabout at South Century and Huntington, kind of south of Sun River in that Three Rivers area, gateway out to the Cascade Lakes area. I'll be paving Powell Butte Highway from US 20 to McGrath, kind of out by the Bend Airport. And then Tumalo Reservoir Road will get a modernization. So that's what we have planned in this construction season and the next. Year after that, a couple more roundabouts in the Sun River area, one at Spring River, South Century, the other at South Century and Venture Lane, which is the Sun River Business Park, if you're familiar with that area. Just a lot of, that's actually the most busiest stretch of county road we have in that Sun River area. Closer to home here, we've got Northwest Way and Northwest Coiner, adding a left turn lane out there and then doing some extended paving. If you drive that a lot, Noah probably does, you'll see that we've got a big pothole problem. And so we'll be replacing the pavement on Northwest Way as a part of that project as well. Paving of Horse Butte Road. This is just a sample of some of the projects. There's a few other maintenance projects kind of tossed in here as well that we have planned. So with that,
I have a question while you're on funding and on projects and showing the roundabout. The roundabout itself and the cost you're talking about, what about adjoining property owners? Do they benefit or are they asked to contribute? What's their responsibility?
Yeah. So, in the county, we're fortunate enough that we're able to site roundabouts and not impact adjacent property owners too much. You're on large lots. You don't have to buy someone's entire property. We're just buying portions of it. And so we pay them fair market value. There's no expectation of contribution. We want to work with them through the project and the impacts and stuff like that. And so if it was developable property like in a city, a lot of times that changes things. You can work together on development entitlements and SDC credits, things like that. But in the rural areas, we've got a little more room to just pay people what property's worth. And
That's great.
Yep. And we also, when we're building them and designing them, we can kind of move them to one side of the intersection so they're not impacting traffic as much during construction. If you're out by the Bend Airport when we did that roundabout at Butler Market, traffic flowed pretty smoothly through there during construction. So good question. So any other questions? This is the end of the show here.
Amongst the counties, there's 36 counties. How much, where do we fit in the miles of roadway?
Yeah. I think we're in the top 25%. There are several counties have up in the more than 1,000.
Those are rural counties
Yep,
typically? Yeah.
yep. Multnomah County gets the most money. They have the fewest miles, but they basically give all their resources to the city of Portland, and they're also responsible for the bridges that cross the Willamette River there. So that's a unique kind of situation in Multnomah. But yeah. Another question.
Just about you, I'm interested, did you start with this and then work your way up? Or did you come in more at management level?
Yeah, good. Thank you. So my old man he was a principal at high school. He did not want me to be a teacher. He said, "You're going to be an engineer." I said, "All right, Dad." He was a Prineville Kiwanian. I grew up at the Kiwanis auction that they would have in Prineville every year, which was a lot of fun. But I got into engineering just kind of through some influence of my parents. I went to work for a small a private firm in Bend for 5 years out of college, doing a lot of development work, building, designing. What's that?
Where'd you go to school?
At Oregon State. Where all engineers go. And
Exactly.
yeah, contributors to society, if you will.
No underwater basket we can be in touch.
Yeah, I appreciate the burger flipping and,
Starbucks.
those folks, contribute as well. From U of O. After that, Joanne hired me at the city of Redmond. I was assistant city engineer, kind of came in. If you're a civil engineer, you're going to work, on the private side doing things, but ultimately you are working for the public because you're building infrastructure. And I wanted to be a part of that, planning city growth, utility systems, transportation was kind of my calling as well. So I kind of worked my way up from assistant city engineer, eventually became public works director for city of Redmond. And then when I came to the county, it was a lateral position. I was the department head there as well.
I wanted to compliment you on something you did right when you moved into your position. I live out in Lower Bridge Estates, and the road down Vaughn Avenue was turned into absolute garbage, and nobody had done a thing about it.
Yeah.
And as I started doing construction out there, I reached out to the county, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to let it go back to gravel." And then Chris went to work with them, and I got a hold of him. And I don't know if it was you, but somehow or another, it all just happened.
Yeah, we did.
And the road got fixed,
Yeah.
re-chip sealed, and it's a huge value to the neighborhood, and it's an asset to the community too, because there's river access from that road. So that was a great thing that the county did, and I felt like you spurred that along.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, we tried it was a double chip seal, one of the first ones we did, and it worked out pretty well there. So thank you.
I'd like to make a comment. Probably one of the smartest things I did in my whole career was hire young people like you. Maybe that look like, okay, maybe they don't have the background, and you really get questioned. But when you see somebody that's good, you need to grab them and hang on to them. Thank goodness you're still in the county, so you're right here.
No, thank you. Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah.
Chris, over time, the roundabouts are very popular, becoming more popular. There's lots of advantages to them. Cost savings? Is there significant cost savings with roundabouts?
So, when you're doing a roundabout, usually the alternative is a traffic signal. They provide similar levels of capacity. Depending on the situation, one could be more expensive than the other. Sometimes, when you put a traffic signal in an intersection, you don't just put the signal in there. You actually have to improve the legs, add turn lanes, so on and so forth. But probably a roundabout's going to cost a little bit more up front. But the savings as far as safety, crash reduction, but severity of crash is roundabout, especially in rural applications, a significant benefit. So roundabouts, you have to slow down. You may get in a crash still, but at 15 miles per hour instead of someone running a red light at 55.
The roundabout in Tumalo sure great. That was a big upgrade.
Yeah, so Deschutes County paid for that, by the way. Yeah, that was contribution.
To the west side of Bend, very comfortable from out there, and
Yeah.
the Fort was not.
Yeah. Right on.
Well, thank you for coming.
No, thank you. Appreciate it.
We
Yeah.
have a pin here.
Oh,
made
awesome.
From juniper tree from a local artist.
Yeah.
Oh, Barb likes to
Terrific.
take a picture.
Oh,
You can't get away. All right.
all right.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Yep.
All right, that's all we have.